Well, good afternoon from Washington, D.C. John Asher, how are you, sir?
Blessed and highly favored.
One of my favorite responses, blessed and highly favored. Uh, I'm Bill Vick, Business Chair here in Sonoma County, California, and my special guest for us today is John Asher, a sales guru and former Navy captain. As I understand it, John, you commanded nuclear submarines, which is not for the faint of heart, I would imagine.
Actually, I was the captain of two of them, but not at the same time, though.
Exactly. Yeah, two at the same time. One is enough. Two is impossible. So, but John, I want to talk about selling. I know that you have technology that evaluates potential salespeople. And as you say, the people that are good on the outside, as we say, the revenue generators making the contact, and then the people on the inside that curate the relationship and so forth. And it takes two kinds of people. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your background yourself. I know many people would probably say, well, gee, nuclear submarine captain, how hard is that? So, John, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my last 5 years in the Navy, I was the program manager of a $5 billion program, co-founded really by the Navy and the CIA. So it was a classified program. Real interesting information. And when you have a job like that, it doesn't matter whether you're Army, Air Force, Navy, or Marine Corps, you have three jobs. You are the program manager. You got to manage the program. Two, you're the buyer. And so you have a staff who puts out requests for proposals and quotes. Big defense contractors bid on them. And then you and your staff supervise the building of the program. And then third, you are totally 100% a salesperson. You have to keep that program sold. You have to budget cuts. You have to go over to the House and Senate Armed Services committees and choose the staffer in charge of your program. So you're totally a salesperson.
I never would have thought that in the military. You always have I was in the Navy for 4 years, and I was always told, so I just did that. But I was never in a position like you were in, John, in which you not only had to do the job, but you had to justify the job, which is a
Absolutely.
sales situation.
Yeah, you actually spent a lot of money justifying doing the operations research,
Hmm.
showing value, because there were so many stakeholders in a program like that. The CIA, all the intelligence community, the Department of Defense, TV, and then there's always people who wanted the program or wanted to be killed for their own purposes.
Oh, absolutely. You can imagine defense contractors. You can imagine the budget within the military. The Secretary of the Navy, and he's got to compete with the Secretary of the Air Force, and they got to compete with Congress and so forth. You know what, John? Probably we need a good salesman in D.C. right now, based on the budget conversations I'm hearing.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, that's the truth. Well, listen, one thing that comes to mind for me, and I know that when I think about selling, and over the years, being a salesperson was highly valued and something that you aspired to be. Over time, that has greatly changed, as you know, and being called a salesperson was like a negative. Well, I'm not a salesperson. I'm whatever. I'm a representative, or I'm an advisor. I'm a consultant. And so the idea of sales, as I see it, is one in which both people win. The one in which I have something that might be of value to you. You evaluate it. I ask you the right questions, and we come to an agreement and we reach a fair price. Now, to me, that's selling. Okay. It's basically working together. It's not like I try to convince you or fool you or anything like that, which I think that a lot of, I'd say Gen Z particularly, and even Gen X to a degree, and millennials always feel like, oh, I'm a salesperson. I'm less. I'm a less individual. And that's not the case at all. As we know, the world revolves around selling. Okay, whether it's selling ads or selling airtime or selling product or whatever, it revolves around human interaction. But one thing that comes to mind for me, the question I'd like for you to maybe answer, or at least opine on a little bit, John, is the impact that COVID has had on selling. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, well, let's just back up one step. about sales and what they do, because there's a public perception that don't value salespeople, as I'm sure you know. It's been that way forever, and it doesn't matter whether it's COVID or not. But when you drop back and think about sales, Charles Schwab says we're all in sales. The late great Zig Ziglar would say, no sales, no company. And Dan Pink, in one of his latest books, To Sell is Human, he claimed, based on his research, that 1 in 9 of us has sales in our title: VP, manager, director, sales rep. But he also says the other 8 of the 9 of us, we're in sales also. We're selling ourselves, we're selling our ideas, we're selling to the boss is selling to us, we're selling to our people, we're selling to the bank to get more capital to grow the company. The banks are selling to us to get our business. My oldest daughter is a criminal defense attorney. So let's see whether she's a salesperson or not. Well, she's selling to the accused to get their business to represent them. She may be selling to the prosecutor to get a deal rather than going to court. If it goes to trial, she's selling to the judge. She's selling to the jury. She's selling to the prosecutor again. She may be selling to her client to get them to cop the best deal. So without any question, we are all in sales. To be human is to be in sales.
You know, and what you say rings true to me, John. It's like, am I hearing you? Or are you hearing me? And are we dealing with the issue at hand? And it could be criminal defense, like your daughter, or it could be the guy selling, door to door. Here I am. Do you understand me? Do I understand you? Do we have a possible agreement here? That's sales. I love the references, Zig Ziglar and Charles Schwab and other people. And there was a Barefoot Sellers, Mike Houlihan, who's the CEO and founder of Barefoot Sellers here in Sonoma County. His comment was that every single person in our company is in sales. You call up and the assistant, she's in sales. If you talk to anybody that moves material, they're in sales, because what they're doing is they're doing the best for you as the customer. I love it. Now back to COVID. Do you think that that's made it harder, easier? I mean, I can't go knock on doors anymore, and I'm not having meetings in my office. How do I handle sales in a COVID environment or post-COVID?
Well, let's go back and look at some numbers. Pre-COVID, about 25 million salespeople in the U.S. 10 million were field sales. So they had a territory. They would go around to the 12 manufacturers in their territory, on a route, and show you products, take orders, build relationships, go out and have a beer, and that sort of thing. So that's 40% of the salespeople were in that position. As far as the hunters go, that is the people trying to bring in a new account, a new logo, then probably 80% of their time spent was face to face. Coming out of the pandemic, it is now a third for the hunters. A third is interacting face to face. A third is virtual, like on a Zoom meeting. And a third is the buyers bypassing the salesperson and just buying directly online. And it's that buying directly online, the third, that is increasing the fastest. Now, the great thing about selling virtually is the latest data from McKinsey shows that salespeople can sell twice as much and reach 40% more customers.
Wow.
Because
huge.
Obviously you don't have to travel, you don't have to deal with the traffic, and on and on. And if you're pretty good with Zoom or Teams, any of the VC platforms, almost as good as face to face. In fact, buyers actually prefer, 75% of the buyers prefer having a virtual meeting with a salesperson as over in face to face.
That is amazing, and I can understand why, because if you're physically in someone's presence, there's a whole lot more going on. Not only did they have to do a certain amount of, work to get there, you have to do a certain amount of work to make sure that you are present there. And it's a lot easier to sit in front of your computer and do whatever you want to do, and then kind of get to the key points of that. I could see, plus also the speed of interactions is greatly enhanced.
Greatly enhanced. And when you look at the buyers now, 75% of the buyers that are millennials or younger.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this expectation based on their experience with B2C sales, right? Things just happen like this. They have that same expectation for B2B sales. And that isn't what happened. And so most of the millennials now would prefer it if they never interacted with a salesperson by any means, email, in-mail,
Nothing. They
phone call,
won't. Don't
in
bother
person.
me. Just don't bother me.
No need, right? No need.
I'll check it out myself. Then that brings me to another subject that's top of everybody's mind, or seems to be almost constantly these days, is ChatGPT. Have you given any thought to that as it relates to sales and interactions? And it's kind of like an advent, or an expansion of what you're just talking about. People want to sell, virtually, and not selling in person.
I'll give you one example. We outsource for both of my companies, the sales advisory services longevity thing. We outsource marketing to a marketing firm, and they have blog writers, and they go anywhere from $30 to $50 an hour, depending on the complexity of the blog or the length and their experience. I personally got a virtual assistant, not to write blogs, but a virtual assistant from the Philippines. And so what our staff would do would be to send him articles, either longevity or sales, and then he would take the article and write a summary of it, and that would be our blog. So it would be the summary of the article, and then at the end you could click either to our website or click to read the rest of that article. And it was kind of difficult getting him to get those summary rights. You had to pretty much heavily edit it. About 2 months ago, he started using ChatGPT. Any editing needed now?
Wow.
No editing, zero editing. Now he's learned with a little training from our guys on how to ask ChatGPT the right questions, right? To get the best out of it, you have to know how to ask the question. In fact, there's a great article in Wall Street Journal recently just about that. How do you
Ask
ask
ChatGPT the right question.
Exactly. So in other words, write me a summary of this article that's 200 words, and keep it light or make it humorous, or whatever it is you want. Zero editing, $10 an hour.
Well, that's another field of work that might be modified as the people that did that. I mean, it is amazing how quickly we can. Two things that come to mind on this to me, John. One is that very quickly we believe it. We believe that is all that I need to know. If ChatGPT came as no editing required, boom, fly with that, that I would believe that. Versus I might curate that. If I had an individual doing that, that might be a different thing. They could say, oh, on the other hand, or by the way, which might make me think. But today it seems like speed is everything. We want it faster and cheaper. And I think that I'm not sure where that goes.
Well, it's because the last several years, our attention spans have gone down too.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the
Because of
reasons,
COVID, yep.
yeah. One of the reasons TikTok is so popular, right? You get it just like this.
Yeah. Selling skills are one of your expertise. I love the APQ test, and you might want to tell our audience a little bit about APQ and your promise to double sales. Let's talk about that.
So there's a number of assessments out there to determine how much talent people have for sales, or any sales job, or actually any management job. And the one we've been using is published by a Vistage company in South Florida. And they don't sell it directly to the consumer. They sell it through distributors or value-added resellers like us. And the reason we stuck with it all these years, it's the only assessment out there that has the following 5 attributes. You can use it for any customer-facing job, including management jobs. Number 2, it has big correlation studies behind it. So you go to Salesforce, you randomly pick 120 salespeople, give them the assessment, watch results for 2 years, and now you correlate their personality traits with how much they actually sell. Then do it at Oracle, then Honeywell, 15 companies, do a meta-analysis, a big summary of the results, And so it becomes very predictive of sales success, not just based on psychologists' opinions, which are okay, but based on real results. Three, it cannot be gamed, and almost all of them can be gamed. And the trouble with the candidate gaming your assessment is this. So after about 2 months, they're not doing much. And so you say to them something like this, the assessment said you like doing these things and you don't do them. Like, WTFO, Navy term. It probably means they gamed it. And when they game it, that leads to that old $250,000 hiring mistake. So it's the opportunity you lost because you hired the wrong person. 4, it's the only assessment out there that is tuned to help people develop higher levels of emotional intelligence. And 5, it has an associated intelligence assessment, IQ assessment, which is useful for technical jobs, some higher level financial jobs. So it's the only one that has all 5 of those attributes. That's why we stuck with it.
That's impressive. And the key thing that I like about it, it is, curated over years, multiple companies, different kinds of sales, and it's actual sales success, because oftentimes you see a lot of these assessments that are based on psychology. And there's a lot more, as you and I know. You might have the right kind of psychology, but you don't have the right grit. You don't work hard. You're not able to overcome that. And some of the best people psychologically say, well, they'd never be a salesman, and they're top salesmen because they're motivated by something else.
Exactly. Now, if you go back and look at the correlation studies, the big picture is when you watch great salespeople, there's 5 things happening: great product knowledge, great skills and tools, this natural aptitude we're talking about, highly motivated, and the company has great processes to support them. So you're going to put a check by all 5 of those. That's real strong correlation to the elite salespeople. And that aptitude of the 5 factors accounts for 50% of results. So it isn't everything, but it is pretty significant. It accounts for half of the results.
And you call hunters and farmers. Tell us a little bit about farmers.
Well, it's almost exactly what it implies. A hunter means you're going to go out there and get a new logo and bring it in. And the farmer means once you got the customer, you're going to manage it and do a great job, build a lifetime relationship, upsell, cross-sell, get referral.
Right, exactly.
And of course, two different roles. Sometimes the farmers are called gardeners.
Oh my goodness. I like that. Growing it, right?
That's it.
Well, listen, you've had some business experience. Share that with our audience as well.
Well, it's kind of interesting. When I left the Navy, I started a little engineering company with 2 other Navy guys. They were smart. They had PhDs.
Mm-hmm.
And we grew it up to about 10 million in sales, just selling back to our friends in the Navy. How hard can that be? And then we stalled a little bit. And then I joined Vistage, a CEO group. About a year later, the 2 VPs joined a key group. 9 years later, we're 165 man.
Yeah, John, you spent some time at Vistage. Tell us about your Vistage experience.
Well, after 21 years in the Navy, I was in the acquisition business. And so I knew a lot about business. So I started a little engineering company selling back to my friends in the Navy. And I had 2 co-founders. They were both smart guys, had PhDs in acoustics and double E. They could actually do real work as opposed to me. And so we grew it up to about 10 million, just selling back to our friends in the Navy. How hard can that be? And then we stalled a little bit. So I joined Vistage, and the 2 smart guys joined key groups about a year later. And then 9 years after that, we were at 165 million and sold the company.
Oh.
So as we're growing it up, people ask us things like, how are you guys growing so fast? How are you pulling this off? And those sorts of questions. And we would all just say, Vistage. And we meant it.
That is a wonderful endorsement for Vistage.
Well, it's a wonderful combination for us of hearing world-class speakers, essentially of almost every meeting, getting input on our issues from the other CEOs and their experiences. So when you bring a business issue to a Vistage group, and you get input from 15 other very smart Vistage members, that's priceless. And of course, the chair is your executive coach. And and at least back then, what you would have to pay for an executive coach, you got the whole package with Vistage. You got the executive coach, you got the world-class speakers, and you got this group. And not only that, Bill, I know you know this, but CEO is a lonely job.
Oh, you know it. Yeah.
Right? So you can have friends in the company or associates, but you can't have true friends because they all know you can fire them. And so just to make 15 new friends at the CEO level was a tremendous value. 8 of them are still my close friends. And that was from a long time ago being in that group of them.
And I can't echo or reinforce what you said enough, John. It's about the ability to have someone that does what you do, not for you or with you, but side by side with you. And the concept of peer knowledge is one that Harvard Business Review and others talk about is critically important. You add to that the speaker network and the issue processing that Vistage has learned from 1957 to present day. 57, we had 7 men that started this. Today we have over 45,000 executives around the world in 34 countries. Obviously, this does work. And I just think that your success and what you're doing right now is you could be a poster for Vistage. John, have they asked you to do that yet?
No, but when we were growing at those 9 years at 42% per year, which sounds extremely impressive, actually half of it was the acquisition of 7 smaller companies. So it wasn't quite as spectacular as it sounded.
Yeah, but still, you had to curate that, you had to understand that, you had to make the transaction, you had to do it. And there's lots of pitfalls, as you know, in acquiring and building and growing. And then in your Vistage group with the issue process, I want to buy this, I want to sell this, I'm thinking about doing this. What have you done and what has worked for you? And the shortcuts that you can get through that are enormous. It can really save a huge amount of time.
A quick example, we bought 7 companies, and the average success rate's about half. So 5 of them were spectacularly successful. 1 was okay, and 1 was a disaster. But even though 1 of the 7 was a disaster, the overall having 5 great companies like that's tremendous.
You're looking at 86% or 80%. We'll take that every day.
And that was because of the help I got from the chair and, of course, the other members.
Fantastic, John. I can't thank you enough for your time. I know it's a Friday afternoon here, and you probably have a long weekend ahead. How was DC today? And
Oh, good. The only reason I agreed to this, Bill, was because I'm going to the beach tomorrow morning for a week.
there you go. Which beach are you going to?
We have a place in the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
I used to live in North Carolina. I've been to Outer Banks many times.
You remember Jockey's Ridge, the big
I
sand
sure do.
beach?
I've been there. Yep.
I got a place right across from that.
Let's see. I could probably get a flight and be out there by sometime late tomorrow evening. So, John, I would love to see you. We will talk more in the future, my man, and be safe. And I will probably have you speak to my group at some point going forward. I'm looking forward to that as well.
Love to do it, Bill. Thanks so much.
You bet. Be safe. Have a great weekend.
You
All
too.
right. Bye bye.